Podcast with your host, Dan Wolkenstein and Jake Hefner.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein and special guest Michael McCain on here from the LA Football Network. Sorry, Michael, I'm not used to saying your name, buddy. That was kind of like a little...
I choked you up
into that intro. Yeah, you did a little bit there. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan, Michael, I've said this plenty of times before throughout many times of watching Chargers games. We know how this franchise just makes you want to throw everything at a wall, possibly break your TV. You know, you crank up the iron lung pressure because you need to breathe.
More of the Brown stuff. Yeah.
And I'm just talking about when the Chargers lose. But even in victories, it comes down to the wire. If you're a betting man at home, and I'll be talking about betting online in here in a second. If you're a betting man at home, just know you're in for a stressful afternoon. But sometimes the Chargers are able to come away with some of these victories, and the Chargers did one in dramatic fashion today.
It did. Yes. And you know what? It looked great on social media too, because I just saw that comment that you put up. It looks great for social media, and it looks great for the NFL football.
Yes. We'll say this. Pedro Ramirez right on cue. I know Acho ate his words. Boys and girls, welcome to Chargers Unleashed, live post-game reaction. Chargers win 6-5. Now the record for LA. Huge. You cannot overstate how important this game was. We're going to get into it as always. We're going to go into the kind of obvious reactions. We'll go into kind of the questions, comments. We want the fans, listeners to be a part of this. So leave your comments, questions, topics in the comment section. And we'll go ahead and bring these in live as we go. So much to discuss. But Jake, I guess right off the clip, it's just kind of getting into it. Should anybody be surprised that these Chargers games are ending like this? You know, to kind of set the stage for this game, we said it on the last episode, excuse me. I thought this was a must win. And if they did not win this game, and we lost Jake, happy to have live TV. If we lose this game, Michael, I think that the Chargers most likely are out of playoffs and are probably most likely, Jake is now back, we're probably most likely out of one of their coordinators. Somehow, the Chargers escape after being down 7 with 2 minutes to go. Was that actually a must-win?
I mean, yeah, for the season, they had to win this game. I mean, you look at what they've done over the last 2 weeks, Dan, and you look at the remaining opponents that they have left on their schedule, you're not going to run the table. So you can't afford to be giving up games where you're fighting this close. And when the playoffs are now on the line and you're starting to see that seeding take place, there's not a lot of room for error in the AFC with the amount of contenders that are there. You still have the Dolphins on the schedule. You still have the Titans on the schedule. This Chargers team is not running the table. So when you get opponents like this, and when you get in game situations like this where it's absolutely must-have, you have to deliver. Now, unfortunately, then I will disagree with you that if the Chargers ended up losing this game, I still think that, unfortunately, the football gods were going to make us Chargers fans languish with pain with this coaching staff and ride it all the way out until Black Monday comes around, until actually a change is to be made. But I can understand your reasonings for making a case that strong, because it's been a frustrating year, especially for the Chargers, well, offensively and defensively. But yes, offensively, when you've seen a number of mistakes that they have made.
Let's get to some of these comments real quick, because there's a ton of them in the comment section. Again, leave us your comments, topics, questions, and we'll go ahead and play them as we go through. Bunch of lightning emojis here from Eladio Adamame. I'm terrible with names. I apologize. Folks are saying 2-point conversion was a right call. We're going to get into that because that was a huge decision. Pedro, we talked about it. I know Acho ate his words. We'll get into that. Kyle Tucker asks, how did we do that? Justin Herbert is an overrated and unclutched social media quarterback. We're looking at you, Emmanuel Acho. Sick play, says Lexus Mexicano. We got survivors from Capil. a whole bunch of folks excited. Hell yeah, from Lexus Mexicano as well. So, Michael, Chargers defense at the end of this game stepped up somehow, which we did not see much of. How much faith did you have in this team to win this game when there was 2 minutes left? Offense gets the ball back with a chance to tie or take the lead.
I didn't have. It's tough to say because the defense. I have all the faith in the defense at end of games because they've shown that they can do things like that. They've always had. When there's one possession you need to get a stop, the defense is able to get the stop. The offense has been the issue, and they had 3 or 4 opportunities, and they finally got it done after those 3 drives that the play calling was just so inconsistent. And you saw it in the start of this game. They kept doing that nonsense with the screen passes and the short passes and all this stuff. The pressure was just coming. And something that was really interesting actually is that they were really pressuring him on that left side. And they were giving Jamari Sawyer a tough time in the beginning of this game. And I don't know if that's because of Jamari Sawyer or they were trying to force Justin Herbert to go to his right side. Because when he was rolling to his left, you see he was getting those passes off on the run and he was making things happen. So, but to answer your question, I didn't have a ton of faith in the offense.
For good reason.
The defense, I did have a ton of faith in because I have seen it before. And they gave so many opportunities to this offense.
It's interesting. And I think, Jake, one of the things that we heard from a lot of fans, you and I had talked about it on the last episode, Jake, was like, at some point, this team needs to give the keys and the gas pedal to Justin Herbert. And enough of this kind of throttling him back and giving him a running game and having him kind of, put the governor on or take the governor off is kind of what we were asking for. And it looked like at the start of the second or end of the second quarter, start of the third quarter, and the rest of the game, they basically put it in his hands the entire time, aside from like a few, I'll say, questionable run decisions or formations. But they let Herbie cook today. And other than the one play that was so close to being an interception, another tipped pass, Justin Herbert balled out 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, had a couple of really, really good runs for a scramble. Herbert silenced a lot of critics today. He had a bunch of huge throws. I think he took what the defense gave him. Jake, over or under for you? How many memes would we have seen with a picture of Sean Payton on the LAC_unleashed handle if the Chargers lost this game? I'm going to put the over under at 53.5.
You're saying how many we would have posted?
How many memes would we have gotten? Not us.
Oh, I've gotten. I mean, they were flying around last week.
Either way, don't have to worry about it. Jake,
I'll say 4.
Okay, talk to us about our friends over at BetOnline, sponsor the show.
Well, I want to remind everybody that BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends over at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. And make sure you use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts.
So let's get right into kind of the keys or the takeaways of this game, kind of the biggest points to cover. Michael, let's start with you. We can each go around the horn. We each give one each, and then we'll kind of go through some of the other ones. But biggest storyline for you of this game was what?
Biggest storyline is they gave Justin Herbert more of an opportunity to make plays with the ball in his hands. They still have those tendencies to keep throwing those quick passes. Like, just allow him to make things happen. You don't need to get rid of it as quickly as possible. He still does have that issue with that a little bit of sidearm pass. I see someone in the comments wants us to address that, how often he's getting those passes tips. Because I think there was that stat that they said during the broadcast that he has the most tipped passes in the league. Is that true?
That's what he said.
He's up there.
Yeah. So there's that issue, but just keep the ball in his hands because he's one of those quarterbacks that he can make things happen. And we've seen that. I think, let me look at his stats right here. 274 yards in this game. He had 47 attempts. And a lot of those attempts were quick passes. I think, if I had to just ballpark, it'd probably be about 7 or 8 of those passes were like screen passes or to a running back.
14 receptions for running backs.
14 for running backs. But I'm talking about just designed specifically get that thing out as quick as possible.
Oh, yeah. You probably add another 2 to 6 for DeAndre Carter and Gerald Everett alone. So, yeah, close to 20.
So, but he also had 3 touchdowns in this game. So that's his stats: 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had a game-winning drive at the end of the game with that 2-point conversion. So that's the main takeaway: is Justin Herbert can make plays happen, and if you give him the ball, you allow him to make plays, and you trust him rather than trying to get it out of his hands. Even when you do give him an opportunity to throw the ball, then he can win games for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think they let Herbert cook, which I think is important. Jake, biggest takeaway. I know generally pessimistic views on things, although it's hard to be pessimistic in a win, but you still sometimes will find a way. Biggest takeaway for you for this Chargers team that come away with a 1-point victory after a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to seal it.
It's kind of 1A and 1B. 1A is the defensive stops that were made towards the end of that game. Something that I personally don't feel that we've seen a lot of this season. You go back to the game against Kansas City, you go back to other games where it's like Dan and I have had this conversation many times. The term complementary football has not played itself often with this Chargers team. When the offense goes out and does something positive and you need the defense to get a stop, it has been a rare commodity for this team to see that on a consistent basis. And vice versa, whether the defense goes out and gets you a high stop and you expect the offense to say, okay, let's go out there and score. Both things just have rarely complemented each other this year. And finally, when you absolutely needed to have it, because trust me, those first 2 drives before the final drive that the Chargers got, you thought to yourself, okay, let's go down, let's score. And here they were again. Very, very small, as you were mentioning, Michael, dink and dunk type of offense. Didn't really seem aggressive. The pressure was getting to Justin Herbert. Arizona was disguising their coverages very, very well. They ran cover 0 on that one blitz that they ended up getting through the middle when they sacked Justin Herbert.
Can somebody block Isaiah Simmons? Like,
he ran right through. That was when Will Clapp was in, wasn't it?
Yep.
So you can argue, Corey Linsley's in there. He sees that.
So again, it's the second half that these opposing defenses just really start to tee off on this Chargers team. You've seen it against San Francisco. You've seen it against Kansas City, obviously. And then here they came again in the second half for this. Second thing I'll touch on, Dan. Well, actually, let me finish that thought. So the defense getting those stops when you had to have them, that was a nice thing to see, to give your offense one more opportunity to go out and get in the game-winning drive. And you did. Second thing, Brandon Staley going for 2. I mean, I'll say this. When the Chargers got that touchdown to Austin Ekeler, I thought to myself, okay, overtime.
Again.
Who in the world is excited about this? And who knows how this movie is going to end when that ended up happening? Brandon Staley calling for 2. It's a little bit of the shades of the aggressive Brandon Staley that we have
2021
for a while. Yeah. Who has just seemed to be going back and forth with some of his decisions all throughout this year. Am I going to be aggressive? Am I not? Am I going to be aggressive? Am I not? Am I going to be consistent? Am I not? I don't know. But hey, that was a hell of a call. There's a great play drawn up to get Gerald Everett free right in the middle of the middle part of the end zone.
And great play call.
You got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, huge. I think it's safe to say that, in my opinion, was probably the biggest drive of this coaching staff's career for this team. If that drive ends in anything other than a touchdown and either 7 or 8 points, I don't know how they come back from that. Going 5-6 with the remaining schedule, that was so big. And the way they methodically kind of went through that last drive and got into the end zone with the actual time management, that was good. We actually saw good time management from this team. I agree with you, Jake. I think the defense, to me, one of the things that we keep seeing with this team is seemingly, when the offense does well, the defense is in shambles. When the defense does well, the offense can't go anywhere. They're never consistently on the same page at the same time. And so we saw that where like the Chargers offense was doing nothing when the defense was doing very well in that fourth quarter late. We saw it early where Chargers offense was actually doing something for a bit, and all of a sudden the defense can't stop anything, and their defense can't stop rushing for anyone, which we'll get to. So it was nice to see the Chargers offense actually do something at the end of that game to seal it. And the 2-point conversion, the play call, in my opinion, genius. Like, because everyone was thinking that's going to Keenan Allen, and you saw everyone slide right Keenan Allen. Isaiah Simmons gets messed over by Gerald Everett, and it's nice to see an easy conversion. Like, it's nice to see an easy touchdown that you just don't get very often. And so Keenan Allen almost had a beautiful touchdown catch earlier in the quarter, ends up having to settle for 3. It was close, but I think the thing for you guys is like the takeaway from every Chargers game is like, it doesn't have to be this hard, but seemingly it always is for this team. You watch games like the Chiefs games usually, or the Bills games usually, or a lot of even just the above average or very good teams. The Bills are obviously, but like, look at the Dolphins or the Titans. Like these teams are routing teams sometimes. Like the Chargers never do. And it seems that they play up and down to competition. And again, that happened today. And I know you always say, a win's a win's a win. You want to see them win regardless, doesn't matter. But like at some point, we are now going into week, 13? We haven't seen a complete game by this team. We haven't seen a complete game by the offense yet. Like, that's concerning. Now, are they still winning? Sure. But that's concerning to me. Like, you can only say, we're winning and we can still do better. Like, sure, as much as I would love that, and I'll take that all the way to the Super Bowl, like, teams usually don't win consistently like this. And so you'll take it, but something has to be fixed. And so I think a lot of Chargers fans were probably frustrated a lot of that game, most likely the first and the third quarter. But how should Chargers fans be more excited about the win, 6-5, game out of the playoffs, that narrative? Or should they be more like, how do we quote unquote fix this? We'll get into how, but like, which one should they be more focused on?
Michael, you want to start?
Michael, go ahead.
Me personally, I am more concerned because Joe Lombardi is still the offensive coordinator, and we still have seen these issues. We just saw it with the quick passes. Still on that last drive, they still had quick passes like that. They just worked on that last drive. So he's still sticking with those things that do not work typically. And, the offensive play calling is just inconsistent still. They just, sometimes they get something going that's like amazing and boom, it works and it's so exciting and it's awesome to see. But then there are other times where it's like, dang, this offense is so stagnant and Justin Herbert is so good. Why is it looking like this? And the defense also, like you give up 38 points against the Jaguars and then like you have a great performance like this at the end of the game. It's inconsistencies all over. I am excited that we did win this game. That is a good sign that, we're now starting to get in that win column again. Playoff time is coming, 6-5. It's going to be tough to get into the playoffs right now, with the way the AFC is. That Dolphins game is going to be a big, big game.
Mm-hmm.
But me personally, I'm more concerned.
Jake, you know which way I'm going to go. I will preface this. We know which way I'm going. But Jake, I know there's 3 of us, so you're obviously going to take the last, what's the word I'm looking for? Majority rule here. Go ahead. More concerned or more excited?
Look, today, the Chargers fans should be excited about a win.
Jake, let's go.
What did I start with? Today. Tomorrow, you need to really, again, think big picture here. What has been the biggest thing that the Chargers have been consistent with all season? That's being inconsistent. Dan, you said it. We're in what is this?
12.
Week 12 now? Usually you hit week 12 and you are what you are. And that's just the long and the short of it. And that's just being brutally honest when you look at this thing from a 5,000-foot view.
Injured, inconsistent, and...
Yes. As Michael was just alluding to, sometimes the Chargers can do great things offensively. But in that same breath, I have been the one several weeks ago that said Joe Lombardi is the one guy who would look at a Ferrari and think, how could I make this thing into a Pinto? Because he just goes away from what works. The last 2 weeks, you start off hot after getting yourself out of these double-digit holes over a 4-week stretch. You get your opening drive touchdowns to DeAndre Carter, to Josh Palmer. And then from there, at least at the start of the second half, it's just completely different feel, more conservative, letting the other teams hang around. And you can't be putting that much pressure on this defense with as many injuries as they sustain. Will they get a stop for you every here and there? Yes, they will. But they are not a powerhouse defense that can constantly sustain stopping the opposing team without any help from the offense. You don't believe me? Go talk to some of the people at the Denver Broncos organization right now about how they feel about that.
Oof. Before we get into what we all know is going to be my optimism here for this segment, Jake, Super Bowl 34. I'm excited, maybe drunk, who knows. And right on cue, Gretz Ubaldo, Liquid Death needs some time to kick in. So, Jake, Liquid Death, our friends over, trying to save the world one can at a time. Murdering thirst, if you will. Let's talk to some of our friends about how to stay hydrated when you may have had too much to drink.
Well, to our commenter, Gretz right there, congratulations, sir. You still have tried Liquid Death before Dan Wolkenstein, so feel good about that. Good job for you. Absolutely. If you guys have not tried it yet, go to your local Albertsons, your Ralphs, your Krogers, your 7-Elevens, whatever supermarket that you happen to have near you. And if you're walking down the energy drink or the water section, you happen to see a collection of Tall Boys right there. Don't let your eyes deceive you. It's not Tall Boys. It is the latest in sparkling water product that is out there right now. Liquid Death comes in 4 different flavors. Absolutely refreshing, great for hot summer days or just a casual day like today, like when it's really freaking cold. You just say, you know what? I just need a good sparkling water. Liquid Death is your answer in that circumstance. As Dan mentioned, Murdering Thirst everywhere it goes does a great job for the recycling community all across the country. Go out and get yourself some Liquid Death today. Go over to liquiddeath.com/LAFB. Tell them Chargers Unleashed sent you and go get yourself hydrated.
All right, so Chargers win by 1, 25-24. They get to 6-5 in the AFC, which is crazy. Adrian Scott, let's get some of the comments, Jake. Adrian Scott, Michael, when we get Bosa and Mike back, I got to think they're going to be better. Do you think this defense is going to look that much better if/when Joey Bosa comes back?
Well, it depends on how that much better is. When you add an elite edge rusher like Joey Bosa, of course, he's going to make a huge impact on your defense, but is he going to push your defense to like that next level? I think I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I mean, earlier in the year is when we saw that defense not being as good as they are now, in my opinion. I think this defense right now is probably the best it's been all season. After that performance, that was pretty good. Joey Bosa, he's a great edge rusher. It comes down to scheme, in my opinion. I think the scheme is more important than adding a guy like Joey Bosa. And, man.
I don't know. This might be a hot take. Jake, do you agree? Is Joey Bosa would he make that much of a difference with his return? Like, I'm talking, let's just say, I don't know. I'm thinking points. Let's say 4 points a game.
Ooh.
I mean, it can't get much worse. We can just admit that. It can't get much worse. We've obviously seen what it's like not having Joey Bosa and what the opposite setting the edge across from Khalil Mack looks like, and it doesn't look good. Even with Joey Bosa, this Chargers team is still one of the worst in rushing yards allowed to opponents. I mean, today, James Conner's best rushing game was 69 yards. And I forget what his final stat was. Michael, if you can help me out, but when I saw the stat was he had 89 yards. I'm sure it was above that.
25 for 120 yards, 4.8 yards per carry.
There you go. So we've seen what this team looks like, especially in the run game with and without Joey Bosa. I think in terms of pass rush, when you look with everything else that's been beyond that, I'm sure Khalil Mack would love to have him back so he's not getting double teamed all the time. I mean, it makes it very, very easy for an opposing offensive coordinator to prepare for a Khalil Mack without a Joey Bosa. So, yes, in terms of setting that edge and getting some extra pressure that's could possibly be consistent with someone the likes of Khalil Mack on the opposite side of that, yeah, I'd have to think it's going to get better. Do I think that that's ultimately going to translate to wins or this defense still surrendering a grip full of points? That I can't answer because we just haven't gotten as big of a sample size this year as we would have thought to see what Bosa and Mack are really going to look like.
Let's see. Let's get some of these comments. Ryan Siebert. I think, Michael, you may have had to pay this man. How much did you pay him? Who's the kid on the bottom? He's very smart with football. I want to follow him on Twitter or other places. Also commenting, saying, I see him on LAFB and usually has great takes. How much did you pay Ryan Siebert?
That's my dad.
There we go. Attaboy. That's support. Everyone needs a father like Ryan Siebert is to Michael McClane.
That's not my dad. I'm kidding. That's not.
I was going to go with that. That was great. Let's see. Gretz goes with Alohi Gilman season. Guys, Alohi Gilman comes in for Nasir Adderley. I think that's 2 games he started. That's 2 games he's won.
Had a great, what was it, on the last defensive drive? He had a great pass breakup.
Mm-hmm. Big performance by him. I think we've talked about it on Chargers Unleashed, Michael, but essentially the way we kind of see it is Alohi Gilman isn't as athletic and doesn't have like the splashy explosiveness that Nasir Adderley has, but we think that he's generally here has a much higher floor than Nasir Adderley. Not splashy plays, but generally is in the right position to actually make the sure-handed tackle. And we saw that today.
Yeah, you probably think that he played better than he did because of what we've seen in, counterparts to him. Like JT was that missed tackle against DeAndre Hopkins. That was pretty bad. And that's exactly how you miss a tackle. You keep your head down and then you lunge your body at a guy. That's exactly what you're not supposed to do. And then, Nasir Adderley has that same kind of issue. But Alohi Gilman, he is not that supremely athletic guy, but he's in position and he can play closer to the line of scrimmage as a safety as well.
Dane Peterson, is that our fourth quarter comeback win of this year? I believe it is. I think I heard that on the broadcast talk about that. But he's not clutch. He's a social media quarterback. Justin Herbert can't win these games. I think he still leads the NFL since coming into the draft with fourth quarter comebacks. But here we are, still talking about it. Elite Gibby asks, this is week 2. He asked, is Keenan Allen an elite receiver as of right now? This is week 2 of Keenan Allen back from injury. Elite is the bar. So I think elite would be what? Top 5 to 10 receivers in the NFL? What say you? My answer is kind of doesn't matter, but go ahead.
It really doesn't matter. But Dan, you and I questioned this. I forget, was it Bucky Brooks that actually put before the season started that the Chargers had the top wide receiver duo in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams? And even we were like, what? Really? Okay. Look, Keenan Allen is just, I won't go as far as to say elite. Is he an amazing, just one of these guys where it's just in terms of someone you can count on 100% of the time to make a play for you? Yes. He's a different wide receiver than a lot of the guys that you see streaking down the field. Is he different than D-Hop? Yes. Is he different than Tyreek Hill? 100%. Is he different than Jamar Chase? Yes. He's just in a different mold, but is still just what you'd call old reliable to me at this point. So can he be a quarterback's best friend? Yes. Is he going to put up the eye-popping numbers that the rest of these guys do? No. But at the end of the day, if that translates to wins, who cares?
Michael? Elite, yes or no?
He has elite aspects to his game. Is he an elite route runner?
Yes.
Yes. Is he an elite just distraction on the field? Yes. But is he an elite receiver all around in terms of that's the guy that's going to get you 150 yards a game? Or that's the guy who can catch that fade route in the back of the end zone every single time? I don't think so. No. And we've seen it, like he is injured this year, but I don't think he's ever really been that guy that you're like, okay, I know Keenan Allen is going to get 150 yards and have like insane production. He's just always been the guy who's going to have great route running. He can get open. He can create a ton of space, and he can do things for your other receivers and your other offensive players on the field.
He's a reception and a conversion machine. I don't necessarily know if he is a production in terms of like getting 1,500 yards in the season, but like on third down, automatic as long as he's healthy. But I think that the important part is when healthy, Chargers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams together make a damn good duo. Like those two guys combined are among the tops in the NFL. And they don't need Keenan Allen to be like the top 3 receiver in the NFL when they have those two together. When they're not together, that's when things get a little different. And also when you have Justin Herbert, you kind of masks a lot of things. Let's get into this real quick. Before we forget, let's get into kind of game balls. I haven't seen, I'm sure they've come out with it from Brandon Staley. They've talked about it. We don't know what they are. 3 game balls each. Jake, let's start with you. Who gets game balls today?
Game balls. I'm gonna give one to Brandon Staley for that last minute 2-point conversion call. I'll give him one for that.
That drive in general, to be honest.
Just for that. The defense late in the game, they deserved it. Again, it's funny because I'm giving a ball here for like a quarter of the game, but really it was such a weird day in Chargers football land as far as
who on defense?
I don't give anybody. Right? I don't even give anybody specific. Honestly, yes, Derwin for ripping the ball away. Yeah, I get that, but I mean, the defense as a whole getting those late fourth quarter stops when you had to, and then obviously Justin Herbert. That was a great moment for him. You need something to boost this confidence to kind of get the spark going and especially have it in as a win. Not to say that he isn't confident or anything like that, but when you look at the way that the last 2 weeks have ended for him, he really needed a game like this. And I'm glad that the coaches put it in his hands to capture a little bit of that 2021 feeling all over again.
Michael, 3 game balls to give out.
I do have a defensive player to give a game ball to, Jake. Dan, okay. You have a guess who it is? I'll give you one guess.
Honestly, I mean, I would have said Derwin James. That would have been my game ball to give to. But the one guy that I kind of want to give it to would be Michael Davis. But the floor is yours.
Morgan Fox. Morgan Fox had a pretty good game. I mean, he had 2 run stops that just stopped the flow of their running game in that first half. That is huge for this team. And when you have a defensive lineman, especially with this defensive line, that it seems like none of these guys can make plays at times, and they always get pushed off the spot. Their pass rushing discipline, they don't stay in their pass rushing lanes, which is why we saw Kyler Murray being scrambling all over the field. And then you see if they can't stay in their pass rushing lanes and have that discipline to stay in their spot, they're going to get pushed off of their spot and in the running game as well. So that's why we see these defensive linemen just get pushed all over the place in the run and passing game. Morgan Fox, his ability to stop runs, I think he had 3 stopped runs that I would have given him credit for. To have that player on defense when nobody else can make a play like that, or at least nobody is making a play like that, because we have guys like Khalil Mack obviously can make a play like that. They're just not running towards him. But to have that guy is monumental, because it can change just like, again, the course of the game with the offense and that drive. Another game ball, I would obviously give one to Justin Herbert because of the game-winning drive, enough said right there. And then DeAndre Carter, because that punt return was huge. That was a big punt return. 7 catches, 73 yards with the touchdown as well. He was the leading receiver. I wouldn't say he was, the best receiver today. I think
big in third down, though.
He was huge in third down. I think the best receiver was probably Josh Palmer, but DeAndre Carter had the most production, and then that punt return as well was very, very big. And then another guy I just want to give a shout out to, J.K. Scott.
Did I hear a 5.5 second hang time for his first punt? Which sucks for having to talk about hang time, but yes. He did pretty good today.
Yeah, special teams in general.
Dan, you've been talking about hang time ever since August, baby.
That's true. This is true. Before I get to mine, let's see what some folks are saying. So Reality Check is saying he gives game balls to Herbert, Derwin James, and Austin Ekeler, which again, Derwin James, how quickly we forget, interception, forced fumble. I mean, he single-handedly kept the Chargers in this game in the first half. Austin Ekeler, interesting game. Like, he was just like peppered with passes, but like wasn't rushing really for anything. Now, do you blame him? Do you blame the offensive line, play calling? Who knows? Eckler's an interesting one, and obviously Justin Herbert. Adrian Scott gives it to Herbert and to Derwin. We've got Derwin and Ekeler again. Dane Patterson says Herbert, James, and DeAndre Carter. And we also have folks talking just simply Herbert.
Dylan.
Game ball to Everett for that catch, says Super Bolts 34. So my game balls, obviously I'm giving one to Derwin James. I have to give one to Justin Herbert. And I think I might have to give it to, like, if I'm Justin Herbert, Brandon Staley gives me the game ball, and then I give it right back to him for that fourth and Staley decision at the end of the game. Like, that is a career defining, that is a season defining, that is you look back on this win or this loss and tale of two halves, depending on how this goes. And say what you will, you can talk about analytics, you can talk about, they should have done it, it's a no-brainer. Like, that takes balls to make that call when you are down one at the end of the game, season on the line, on the road. If they lose this game, that's probably the biggest storyline on SportsCenter.
Yeah, season's over if they lose the game.
And they lose it that way. Like, you know how much crow folks are going to be talking about if that happened? And it didn't. Like, luckily, Chargers stay off with a sunset with a victory. So, yeah, I think I'm going with Brandon Staley, Justin Herbert, and Derwin James are my three.
I have a question for you, actually, Dan. Why would you not give that game ball to Joe Lombardi?
I can't. As I can't. As much as I give Joe Lombardi, I don't even know if I want to say credit for the, let's call it, play calling at the end of the game.
The play design at that last play, because that's like the game ball right there, right?
Honestly, I mean, maybe it's like a 50-50 Joe Lombardi, Brandon Staley for that last play. But I think Brandon Staley had a pretty good day. That there weren't any major coaching decisions that I was like, that was stupid. There was no, other than like the 12 minute on the field penalty that I saw, there weren't any like high level, like, what the hell are they doing times. There were those for this Chargers offense. And kind of all talked about, like, I just don't know how you can say Joe Lombardi deserves a game ball regardless of that last drive. Like, and I honestly, if you ask me, that seemed like a drive that was won in spite of play calling. You just saw a lot of like players making plays.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that was like Joe Lombardi drawing up these magical plays. The last one, the 2-point conversion, great play call, great play design. Where has that been? But yes, I would not give Joe Lombardi a game ball. I would, if anything, it would be deflated. And that's going to go pump air in it. I don't know. Jake, anyone else? Runner-ups, if you will?
No, it's pretty cut and dry. Again, close, frustrating victory as it was for the Chargers. Still came away with a W in dramatic fashion.
Trello1 says nobody wants to talk about that O-line collapses every fourth quarter. We're going to talk about it.
We'll definitely talk about it.
Why does the offensive line seem to collapse every fourth quarter? And I don't even know if it's just the fourth quarter.
It's not just the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see like
quarter.
a theme. It just kind of collapses, again, inconsistently, which is what you guys were saying. It's a theme with the team, inconsistency.
Now, is it an issue where, Jake, you love using the term adjustments. Is it an issue where opposing teams make adjustments to our offensive line or to our offensive scheme and kind of pick apart the weak links, if you will, on this offensive line? Or are the Chargers offensive linemen or blocking folks in general just slacking?
Majority of it's adjustments, other teams.
I think you're right.
Go into halftime and they make adjustments. Chargers, specifically Joe Lombardi, rarely makes adjustments. If the only thing that he does adjust is maybe taking his foot off the gas pedal if he's having a good first half. But here you go into this conservative offense that you'll see sometimes in the third quarter, Dan. I mean, how many times is this? How many times have the Chargers actually scored points in the third quarter before today? It wasn't a lot. You go back and you look at it in the third quarter, as far in terms of scoring points in the third quarter, Chargers have not done that a lot this season.
Chargers outscored the Cardinals 11-7.
Wow.
Today.
That's great. Whether it's going conservative to the run game, whether it's the short dink and dunk passes, there's a variety of things. You even did it today. You had 8 plays with negative yardage. You're putting yourself in these third and long situations where defense can just say, screw it, man. You don't scare us. We're going to pin our ears behind, and we're going to come right after you. And that's what they did. Majority of this game, especially deep into that fourth quarter before that last drive, you could see that this Chargers offensive line was definitely having trouble protecting. And Joe Lombardi once again if obviously there was no run game today outside of Justin Herbert, which even that wasn't a lot, but it was going to the screen game. And thankfully for him, a couple of plays in that final drive, it finally started to work. But a majority of those negative plays were from screen plays because nobody up front can either get out in space or can man a block in order for a receiver to simply catch the ball, turn around, and run 5 yards. It's a variety of different things. Dan, we probably could do a whole hour-long segment on what happens to Lombardi's offense in the first half, or what happened to Lombardi's offense in the first half when they were down double-digit points to go into halftime.
Pick a game.
Who knows? Like I said, the one consistent thing about this Chargers team is that they are inconsistent.
The interesting. So Paul Guevara points out that Herbert is our leading rusher today. And just to kind of give a couple stats here, the Chargers as a team, 13 rushes for 65 yards. 38 of those yards came from Justin Herbert, 20 from Austin Ekeler, the remaining 7 from Kelly and Spiller. You guys, 47 pass attempts for Justin Herbert, 13 rushes. That's a 78% pass. Like, that is unsustainable. But do the Chargers just need to just say screw it and pass 78% of the time to have a chance to win these games now? Like, is that where we're at? With the current staff.
It's when they run the ball, sometimes it works out really well. Other times, whoever is in the backfield just has no chance. And this offensive line, you get guys going in and out. Corey Linsley, even, I mean, that you can argue that's the most important position on the offensive line is center. And he played, I think he went out in the second quarter, like halfway through the second quarter.
I know they came out in the third quarter that said he was out with a concussion. So it's sometime in the second quarter.
Yeah. So, and then Trey Pipkins also went out in that game, and we're already down Rashawn Slater. We've had guys going in and out, so it's hard to build up this, trust within the offensive line. You have to play as a cohesive unit, and it's difficult to do that, especially in the running game, and especially when you're trying to get guys way out in space. And sometimes they do some pretty complex things in the run game with motion and these tight ends, having a tight end seal off one edge and you're running to the opposite end and you're pulling the left tackle, things like that. It's hard to do when you've got so many injuries and you have guys that, like Matt Filer. He's not a great guard.
He's not a great guard, he's not a great guard when Corey Linsley is not there. I think that's been proven now. Jake, what do you do? Do you just say screw it?
Look, unfortunately for this Chargers team, it's going to have to live and die by Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is the best chance that you have of staying in any of these games. And if that means throwing the ball 78 times, that's what it may come down to. It shouldn't have to be like that. Dan, before the season started, we were talking about, okay, what are the expectations for Justin Herbert in year 3, based on the way that this roster had been constructed at that point in time. And this is after the draft. This is after free agency. And I said that I felt that the way that they were constructing this was to make Justin Herbert not have to play hero ball all the time. Give some weight onto somebody else. Remember all the things that Austin Ekeler was saying last year about the running game? Somebody else needs to step up and assist out in this. You need to carry off some weight for somebody. So whether, again, the Chargers receiving core has just absolutely been depleted this year, in and out guys, a lot of games without your 2 big key targets. And Justin Herbert has had to fight. He himself has been injured. His offensive line has been injured in and out. And I'm not going to stand up here and make excuses, but the way that I felt that this roster was constructed was that they wanted to make this a more well-balanced offense. That was their mindset going into this year. I think that was the way that Brandon Staley and Joe Lombardi had thought of it, that you could pull these 7 or 8 minute drives, put 7 in the end zone, and just be a ball controlling offense that's still going to be able to be efficient and still high scoring in that respect. But it doesn't have to all be on Justin Herbert's arm. With the defense that you went out and you made so many investments in, you thought that this was going to be a powerhouse that was going to give Justin Herbert and this offense so many more opportunities. And unfortunately, it has not panned out that way. So I think that they have basically just still kept with the same type of playbook that they constructed in the offseason, the same type of philosophy, have not changed from that at all. And they've been very, very difficult to making in-game adjustments. But really, what other best option do you have right now? Yes, the Chargers have had good spurts here and there. You go back to the Cleveland game, you go back to the Houston Texans game in terms of the Chargers running the ball really well. But even that has not been a consistent staple of this offense. Too many times, the Chargers, when they choose to run the ball, it'll be on first down and they'll get swallowed. And then they'll try a running play again, or it's incomplete. And then before you know it, the Chargers are in 3rd and 12, and here comes the defense. So Justin Herbert's arm, and possibly him throwing it 50 times a game, while, yeah, that doesn't sound good, maybe the best chance that they have for the rest of the season.
Vidaldi Perez with the question, how do y'all always find something negative to say? SMH. Jake with a wave, Mike with a smile. Vidaldi has not listened to the entire show, or else he would have heard a lot of the praise and happiness and excitement that we have. And Cash App me, which is kind of a hilarious. It's not really negative if it's true. And are we being negative?
How is that being negative?
We're being
We're
critical.
just looking for improvements.
We're being critical.
Negative? Like I said, Chargers fans today, please enjoy the win. You deserve to enjoy this win. But tomorrow, start thinking about it.
Yeah, put some more thought into it. How could we be better?
Yeah, Kiet Nyo, I think is his name. We had to pull off a miracle on a 4-16 today. Vidaldi Perez. He's looking.
It wasn't a miracle. It was a great play design at the end of the game, and there was no hesitation. Did you see on the sideline? He immediately was like this.
Yep.
We're going for 2.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I loved. He had that mindset back. Brandon Staley. He just, we're going to win this game. Yes. It wasn't that, defense can stop him in overtime. There was no hesitation. It wasn't a miracle. It was they wanted to win more than Arizona did.
So, they can call us negative Nancy's if they want. Don't care. And if folks have watched Chargers Unleashed, they would know where we're at in this positive optimism, pessimism, negativity realm. I don't need to get too much into that. And just saying, I know that they were 4-7 going into this game, but that is not a 4-7 football team when Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, and Hollywood Brown are all playing. And they haven't all played at all until today. Kyler Murray on that offense is very different than Colt McCoy. Guys, I think we have to talk about this because I think Chargers fans have been perturbed, if you will, by one Emmanuel Acho, who seems to just be relentlessly trolling, hating, moving goalposts, gaslighting Chargers fans for weeks on end at this point about Herbert not being clutch, Herbert not being good. and shining the Dolphins guy, more or less. I'm going to open the floor up to you both. And I'll just say Emmanuel Acho and then let it ride. Jake, the floor is yours. Do you think he's sitting there now like, damn it?
Start with Michael on this one because I kind of have a lot to say.
Ooh,
even though I shouldn't have anything to say about
he's
Emmanuel
baiting.
Acho.
He's clearly baiting everyone, and it's worked. It's worked. He's a Skip Bayless-ish type. But Michael, do you think he's doing that on purpose? Like, do you think he actually believes that?
There's probably some sort of seed of truth into that, in his mind, like he thinks that it's true, but he's like, okay, how can I get this and be this huge thing on social media and create like this huge narrative that's going to give me all this interaction on Twitter and, wherever else he's posting this, Instagram or whatever. And, I'm sure he has to, right? He has to think Justin Herbert is a good quarterback. There's no way he doesn't, right?
There's no way, right? Like really, do we actually think he doesn't think he's a good quarterback?
I mean, come on. Like, this is a guy who knows football. He's just baiting us because we are giving reactions to it. And you know what? Also, I have this to say. What is wrong about being a social media quarterback? He can win games. He can be great on social media and have these great throws like that, but he's also winning games now. He's putting up stats and all this stuff. There's nothing wrong with being a social media quarterback, having great throws like that. Is Patrick Mahomes a social media quarterback? Because he can make throws like that too. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with it. And if he wants to get all these clicks and stuff and bait Chargers fans, don't get so irritated with him because he's just messing with us, man.
Adrian Scott, I hate that guy. Cash app me. Herbert is Acho's daddy. The Wynn family. Acho is the new Skip. I think folks don't like Acho. Jake? J.O. says he's Stephen A. Smith for the Cowboys, just hating to hate. Katie said, Acho has a point when it comes to Herbert's fourth quarter interception problems. I agree with him on that, but no social media quarterback. Okay, so, Jake, before we get your feeling on Emmanuel Acho, I want to hear that first, and then I want to get into the fourth quarter, quote-unquote, interceptions. Jake, feelings on Emmanuel Acho?
I hate giving any more attention to this man. I really do. And it's not from a standpoint of just like, what are you doing? What are you saying? You are crazy type of thing. It's literally just his approach about it. Here's my recommendation. Emmanuel Acho, there is a number to call. There's a 12-step program for OCD.
First step is acceptance.
You have it in relation to Justin Herbert. You are obsessive. You are compulsive, and you have a disorder about it. If I spent all my time on social media being obsessive and negative and basically stalking every move someone else did, there's other names for that are probably not appropriate for this show right now that I'll just stay away from. But I digress. Look, don't try to be the next Skip Bayless. Don't try to be the next Nick Wright. You're better than that. You're better than that. And if the only way that you can possibly garner any type of recognition is to slam a young quarterback constantly by going as cheap with a take as he's a social media quarterback, Emmanuel, man, you probably still have your MySpace account still active somewhere. You are more familiar with social media than Justin Herbert is. And for you to say something like that is absolutely egregious, my friend. It's absolutely egregious. So don't be the next Skip Bayless. Don't be the next Nick Wright. No problem with you being behind your guy in Tua, who's having a fantastic season,
100%.
By the way. I have nothing bad to say about the way that Tua Tagovailoa has been playing this season.
But he makes Chargers fans and NFL fans generally not like or want to not like Tua when you say things like this. But
I'm not even that far with it, Dan, because
I know
he's playing the game.
I know.
But it's the fact that as an analyst, you get to that level and you should have a much more educated approach than you have to build up your guy by slamming the other guy. and the best that you could do is a social media quarterback? Come on, man. Good thing that you didn't get into a career in comedy, because that probably would have tanked too.
There had been booze, a lot of booze. Props to the Fit Freestyle Kid with a $4.99 donation to us, guys. Thank you so much. Give Justin Herbert an offensive head coach and Tyreek Hill. Needs to score 49 a game. Okay, Jake, there was a question, Michael, there's a question here a second ago that basically was talking about fourth quarter interceptions for Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an issue? Is that a thing?
You know, you would have to go back and watch each one individually, because it's not every single one of those is built the same. Some of them were tipped passes. Some of them were terrible decisions. Some of them were thrown in double coverage over the middle of the field. You know, I can definitely remember, I'd say maybe like 3 or 4 that were his fault. And then I can also remember a ton of interceptions that weren't just in the fourth quarter, that were tipped balls and that were dropped passes and weren't his fault. So, you know, it is a theme, and that is concerning in itself, even if it was all not on him, because then it's a team issue. So, yeah, it is concerning that he does have these fourth quarter interceptions, but it doesn't fall entirely on him.
Jake, first, is the fourth quarter interception thing an issue / trend? And if so, what do you do?
I mean, yeah, just from a face value thing, if you just look at the
is
stats.
Is it his issue?
Some of it has been, yes. Most of the time, no, it's not. But it's the unfortunate part about it is that if Justin Herbert is not put in those situations in the first place for those to be had, when the entire defense knows he has to pass. You go back and you just look at the last 2 games. San Francisco, obviously they knew where that was what he had to do. And they're backed up to their own end zone in that particular situation. It's not going to be an easy out for Justin Herbert in that scenario. Obviously, last week against the Chiefs, yeah, there's a tip ball at the end of it. He's trying to get it down the field to Justin Palmer. The defender makes a great play. Of course, it gets tipped up in the air. And of course, the defender ends up coming down with it. So it's more to me that it's the scenarios to where Justin Herbert is forced to play aggressively, just to play catch up, just to get this team back in the game, that these scenarios will happen more often. And that's true for any quarterback, that these will happen when you're put in these type of situations. So are they all his fault, or is it a trend? Is it a thing? You know, you ask Oucho, he'll find every stat imaginable to tell you that
I like that
it's him. But truth be told, no. But it is something that the Chargers, just in general, whether it's Justin Herbert or anybody else, you have to cut down on these turnovers at bad times.
It is 100% an unfortunate trend, and some of it is Justin Herbert's fault, not all of it. There's a lot of tip passes, which we'll get into in a later discussion about why those happen. The majority of the interceptions that he throws end up coming on tipped passes. Majority. The one against the Chiefs in the double coverage, like that was not, and I put that on Herbert, to be honest. I know he had no time to throw, but most of the interceptions at the end of the game are coming in desperation and are coming off tip passes. Now, you could argue, if you're an elite quarterback, you overcome all that and you still find a way to win. And maybe he's not quite to that level where he's like the godlike of a Mahomes or of a Josh Allen, or maybe he is and just doesn't have anybody to help him. Who knows? But the best in the NFL find a way regardless, like we saw today, where Justin Herbert found a way. Very lucky that was not another tipped interception. Luckily, the ball grazed the grass for the defender, or else we would have been talking about this in a whole different light. But yeah, it's an unfortunate trend. But to Jake's point, it's a trend that shouldn't have to be this way if the Chargers were doing something earlier in the game to where they don't have to be in this position. Jake, already we've got Raul, Raider fan, Raider Nation for life. You guys ready? As if like the Chargers didn't just spank them week 1 and they just had 2 desperation wins to get to 4 wins. Like, what are you doing here?
Dan, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not trying to defend.
No, I'm not. They could totally come out. They could come out and win next week. I'm sure they could. I don't care. I'm just saying it's kind of a weird timing, right? It's a weird timing.
Simply saying, with this coaching staff
No,
and the
I'm not.
inconsistencies of this season. I'm just saying, don't do it.
No, I'm just
Don't
saying
do it.
it's weird timing. I guarantee you, if they lost this week, this guy would be somewhere drinking,
Man,
not even thinking about us.
The Chargers and Raiders could both be 1-11 teams right now, and you know that Chargers Raider week is always something to get hyped up for. It's the Super Bowl between these two teams, and that's what it is.
Fair. All right, guys, we're wrapping up here with instant reactions from this game. Any kind of final, I guess, key takeaways from either of you? Things that are going to be kind of either in a positive light, very exciting, or things that are going to kind of stick in your backside here for the next week as we kind of go into week 13 against the Raiders?
I'm still waiting for that one game, Dan, where this team plays 4 quarters of football. And it doesn't even have to be complete all 3 levels.
I'll take 3 quarters. I'll take 3.
I'm not talking about an absolute dominance like a 40-3 game that the Dallas Cowboys had 2 weeks ago. I'm not talking about that because I know that that's not real. I'm just saying, can your offense give me 3 quarters of consistent football? Show me that you can still be the same offense that you were in the first half 2 weeks ago. Show me that. Can you start off fast, unlike what you did today, but you did it the last 2 games? There is a level of consistency that is not found on this team and has yet to be found so far this year, that if you're about to go into these next several weeks, Raiders, Miami, Tennessee's on the horizon, still have to play Denver one more time. If you're going to make a playoff push where there is very, very little room for error, you cannot sustain, I don't think, more than 1 loss in this stretch if you're really trying to make the playoffs. So you need to be tight. Your game preparation needs to be there. Your execution needs to be even better. And you need to try to play 4 quarters of football. You need to do it. And you're going to need to do it against some of these guys that are playoff bound as it stands right now.
Pour one out for the Broncos fans, by the way. Michael, what say you?
And it's just the same stuff. It's the same stuff we just won today. Obviously that game-winning drive by Justin Herbert was great. We've seen that, though. We've also seen the interception at the end of the game. And then with the inconsistency, the only thing that is consistent on offense, it seems, are those quick passes. And they rarely ever work. I'm elated that they worked at the end of that game. DeAndre Carter had one specifically that I remember. I think it went for about 12 yards. That was huge.
To the right, yep.
I love the players that they have on this team. And I think Brandon Staley is a good coach because there was a reason that he was hired last year. We were all so excited last year of how this team played. And then even just when he was hired, there was so much excitement around that. And I remember, I think Ryan Dyrud was the first one saying, like, this guy is a genius. And then we all hopped on that train, like, okay, we love this guy. And then all the 4th down decisions, we were all down for it. If he shows throughout this next, let's see, how many games we got left? About 5 games left, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games left. These last 6 games are going to be huge for his entire career, I think, because, you talk about getting momentum, and his confidence level too has got to be another thing, because this is his 2nd year. We've already seen a shot in his confidence, I think, with these 4th down decisions early in this season. He hasn't been going for it as often as we think he should, and as often as he would have last year. So these next 6 games, it's not only going to be big for the Chargers this season, I think it's going to be big for Brandon Staley's entire career.
It's true. I said at the top, this was a season-defining victory, season-defining drive. If they would have lost this game, this season was most likely over, and the narrative is so bad. But somehow, I know we talked about, like, the shaky confidence. Like, he had it at the end of the game. Immediately, you talk about it, Michael, immediately went up for 2 as soon as that thing went up. And, like, that's what you love to see. And I was wondering, I tweeted about it, like, when the Chargers got the drive started, I was like, do they go for 2? And so many people were like, oh, yes, they definitely should go for 2. But, like, it's easy to say it. It's another thing to actually go and do it. And if you don't get it, like, that's on him. Like, that is solely on him, regardless of the play call. Red 03 2003. I'm about to be pie in the sky fan. Here we go, Jake. About to go on a run, finish 12-5. Bolt up for life, baby. I've said it. Chargers need to get to 10 wins. 10 wins, I think, gets the playoffs. They're at 6. They need 4. They need to go 4-2. It feels like to go into the playoffs. Can they do it? Who knows? But if they went 5-6, there's no way they're going 5-1. Like, there's just no way. And say what you will about, Staley and Lombardi and all that. Like, a lot of their horses are not out there right now. And slowly but surely, they're coming back. They got Joshua Kelly back today. They got Gerald Everett back today. Trey Pipkins was able to come play for a little bit, although he did re-aggravate it, but stayed in. In theory, Mike Williams might be able to play next week. Bosa coming in after that. Like, the team that they all signed up for is not on the field right now. The quarterback they did is still there. So you got to take it with a grain of salt on both sides. Guys, gentlemen, anything else you want to talk about today before we let the great friends of LAFB Chargers Unleashed get back to celebrating a 6-5? Again, remember, 6-5 Chargers victory. Chargers in the win column still. Winning record, 6-5. Clearly in the playoff hunt. It's a day to celebrate. I know folks are a little critical, as are we. Anything else you want to discuss before we get out of here?
If we can, I just want to go through these next few opponents and just really quick. What do you think instinctively, win or loss? You want to go do this? Because we got to see, are they going to make the playoffs? As of right now, what do we think?
Let's go. All right. So, go ahead.
Next week, we got the Raiders.
Win.
In Vegas.
Win.
I think win too. Josh Jacobs, that's going to be a big factor in that game.
That's
week after that, Dolphins in LA.
Ugh.
Dolphins in LA.
If Bosa is back, win.
Oof.
If Bosa's not back, Jake, what do you think? Raiders and Dolphins. One word.
I don't know.
Win or loss. One word. Win or loss. One word.
What is your gut telling you?
You can do it.
My gut's telling me to trust my eyes from what I've seen.
His gut always says loss. Let's just be real.
And yeah, it's, as of right now, it's leaning toward that way. Yes, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have lost. You have lost both games.
I don't necessarily have. No, I don't have them losing against the Raiders. I think that they'll find a way to pull that one out. It's probably still going to be close, come down to the wire, much like the week 1 did. But
okay,
they're still going to have plenty of holes to fill up, as Michael mentioned.
All right, so I got them 8-5. You got them 7-6.
Okay,
continue.
I got them 7-6 too right here because I think it's a loss to the Dolphins, and then after that, Titans come to LA.
Loss.
Yeah,
I think it's a loss. It has to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Tennessee's just too physical of a football team.
They are 8-7 or no? What would 8-6 or 7-7?
Yep.
And then after that, you go to Indianapolis, face the Colts.
Win.
I think you'll get a win there.
That's 9 wins.
And then
for me,
the Rams. It's a home game for us against the Rams.
I think the Rams are in tank mode right now.
Yeah,
and not just from the standpoint that they are actually legitimately injured, but I just don't think that they're. I think they really are in tank mode. And
yeah,
I think it's a win.
Whether they don't have a first round pick or not, they're just trying to make whatever picks they have the highest they could be.
Yep.
I think it's a win. All right, so win there. So now we're at 9 wins or 8 wins.
Yep. And then the last one is at Denver.
Oh, sorry, that's 10 wins or 9 wins. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. And then at Denver.
Oh, see that? Oh, see that's the game. That's the game that's gonna piss me off. Like I swear, if the Chargers get to the point where they're like 9-7 going to that game.
Yeah, 9-7 or 10-6, something like that.
If they are 9-7 and then Russell Wilson has like a let Russ cook whatever game, and he's the one, that team's the one that eliminates us after the Raiders last year. Like, I can't. Like, they have to win that game versus the Rams.
The Broncos game for me scares me because that's the one. And what was that season where? What was the season where Eric Weddle had that fake punt to get like 2 yards? Was that 2013? And it, like, you look in the review and it wasn't actually there. And then it was against Chase Daniel. It was against the Chiefs. That's what it was. And it was the last game they had to win to get in the playoffs. That's the feeling I'm getting for this Denver game. It's going to come down to that game somehow, and it's going to be win and you're in. And
so do you see him doing it?
Just like last year.
Do I see him getting in at this point? It depends on what like the
I
Dolphins
think
do.
at that point I have the Chargers at 10,
That'd be 10 or 11 for you
10 or
if you
11
have
for
them
me,
winning
and
Denver.
it'd be 9 or 10 for you.
Chargers have to win either the Titans game or surprise everybody and win against the Dolphins. In my opinion, in order to make the playoffs, they have to win one of those two games. One,
Dolphins
obviously, just from the stretch of how many games you have to win just to get in, but against both or against AFC conference opponents. So it's huge when it comes to that respect. So you have to surprise on at least one of those games to make the playoffs.
It's going to come down the wire, which, again, like it always does. And the Chargers always do this to their fans. Every week, it feels like, is going to be relentless and heart attack city. But the Chargers found a way. 6-5 is 6-5 is 6-5. Chargers second in the division in the AFC West, firmly in the playoff hunt. That Dolphins game is going to be box office. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets flexed too, because that's got fireworks everywhere. For Michael McLean, for Jake Hefner, this is Dan Wolkenstein from Chargers Unleashed and LAFB. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been a ton of fun. If you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, both at the LAFB handle as well as Chargers Unleashed. You can find Jake at Jake T. Hefner, myself at Dan W Sports. Michael McLean, his live debut. Where can they find you?
On Twitter, Michael _ McLean, MACLANE, and then the Chargers LAFB.
For YouTube. Michael, Jake, this has been so much fun, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone who is there live with us, thanks so much. Congratulations. Your Chargers won a football game today. They're 6-5. We'll talk to you next time in LAFB and Chargers Unleashed.